Good afternoon. What's going on, my brothers and sisters? This lesson is going out to my grandfather, Leotis Jefferson, and my grandmother, Ruth Caprew Jefferson. I miss you and I love you so dearly. You know, people think I'm crazy because of what I'm passionate about, and that's family. You know, as you can see to your right, you see my grandfather, straight up Native American, native to this land. I'm not going to say American because according to the Department of Census, American is 72% white alone, and black is, and African is 12%. English is not there. English were the native tribes who existed on this particular territory prior to it being colonized by the French, Spain, Dutch, British, and every other so-called foreigner who claims to have a right to the possession of this land. My grandmother was born in Columbus, Mississippi. My grandmother was born in Drew, Mississippi. And my grandfather was born in Columbus, Mississippi. This is very important because most of the so-called indigenous people of this land are composed of what we call the Mississippi culture. This stretches all the way from the Ohio down to Louisiana. Okay? Most of our ancestors were forced to move by way of the cultural assimilation of the natives into the American way of life. And this was done in the 1924 Citizenship Act of the Native American, well, the natives into the American way of life. My grandfather was born in 1914 AD. The receiving president at this particular time was Woodrow Wilson. And Woodrow Wilson was the first governor of New Jersey. Or was the governor, I should say, of New Jersey. I wouldn't say first, but he was the governor of New Jersey before he became president. He also was the president, resided as president when the Federal Reserve Bank was enacted. And this is why the gold is off the market. And we're now using the fiat created by the Federal Reserve Bank. My grandfather was a free man. My grandmother was a free woman. And what brings me to say this is because they were born in Columbus and Drew, Mississippi. They were married in Marion, Mississippi. Okay? Look up and do your research on these particular counties. These counties were called shires back in the time when we were going by the laws of the church. At this time, Woodrow Wilson being in office, Pope George VI, or I should say King George VI, was ruling. He was not a pope, but he was considered a king. And he's the father of Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of the United Kingdom of Britain. As you know, my grandfather's name is spelled Leotis, Leotis, Jefferson. But on his death certificate, it's spelled Leodis, Jefferson, Leodis. So this is not my father's first name, grandfather's first name. They graded a death certificate, but my father or grandfather was never declared dead. He's physically dead, but spiritually he's alive. He was not subject to the laws of the United States, which didn't get their independence till 1783 by way of the Treaty of Paris, ratified in January 14, 1784. George Washington happened to be part of this signatory by way of bona fide members. These members, without a doubt, were not bona fide signatories to this treaty because they violated the very essence of what this treaty is composed of. And we're going to get into that, all right? So as you can see, there's my grandfather on the right, and there's my grandmother, Nina Ruth Capu Jefferson. This is my grandfather, Leotis Jefferson. Okay, let's go ahead and do some research. As you guys know, I filed a complaint against the Department of Health and Vital Statistics for slavery on behalf of registering as American citizens, subject to the 72%, which are European descendants, identifying or self-identifying themselves as American, which we are not. We are English nationals, which is the correct term for us as the indigenous people to this particular land. But when I filed a lawsuit, both defendants moved for a motion to dismiss. This was the Department of Health and Vital Statistics and the probate court of Middlesex County. Middlesex County is under the Middlesex County freeholders. Middlesex County freeholders are under the authority of the governor, as well as the judicial system, the Superior Court, which this case is being handled in. They both sit within the East Province, or East Jersey, which is under the province of New Jersey, which is under the authority of King George. They surrendered their power in 1702. Charles II gave a grant to George Carteret and John Berkeley, and they within themselves took it upon themselves to create other deeds under the Quinton Party Deed or Quinton Party Act. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right. This was a violation of the law, and Governor Andrews corrected this. They all surrendered their powers to the authority under Queen Anne's Act of 1702. This was called Queen Anne's War. So therefore, no state has the authority in lieu of the authority given to them by the Treaty of Paris of 1783, which in this act, if you look it up, point 5 says that they have to give back the land rights to the owners of this particular land, which were the English, which are now being identified as Native American Indians who are Afro, which was also identified as Afro or Black Americans. And this particular identification or self-identification came up with the creation of the so-called founding country by this founding forefathers. But this is something that I received yesterday in the mail from one of the defendants, which was the Department of Health, in lieu of their motion to dismiss, because I found a motion myself to dismiss their motion to dismiss for failure to answer the interrogatory questions in lieu of discovery pursuant to the validity of my complaint. They both stated in their complaint, Middlesex County and Department of Health, that the court should show liberality in lieu of new ideas pertaining to parties in regards to their religion, ethnicity, and so on and so forth, which to move for a motion to dismiss would be a violation of that particular quotation they made in their complaint, which was made by both defendants. Okay, but this is what I received from the Department of Health in Middlesex County in lieu of me or opposing their motion to dismiss for failure to answer the interrogatory questions. Let me just pull it up. Give me 1 second. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can see it. Okay. This is the Clerk of Superior Court, March 21st, 2020. Clerk of Superior Court, Middlesex County Law Division, 56 Patterson, New Brunswick, New Jersey, 08903. Jefferson versus Probate Court, Department of Health and Vital Statistics, docket number MID, Law Division 295-20. All right. This is what they stated. This is, Dear Madame, I guess they make a reference to the clerk or the judge. It says, this office represents defendant New Brunswick, Department of Health and Vital Statistics in the above matter. on the about March 12, 2020, this office filed its motion to dismiss the plaintiff's complaint with prejudice. So they're opposing my complaint and move for dismissal without answering to interrogatory questions which I sent to them. Okay? It said for failure to state a claim upon which belief can be granted. The complaint itself and the facts to support the claim were the exhibits I'm about to mention. It says that motion is scheduled to be heard without oral arguments on April 9th, 2020, which I object because my motion stated if they object to my motion to object to their motion of dismissal, that I want to have oral arguments pertaining to that. It says, in reviewing the plaintiff's opposition to the city's motion, now this is my motion to dismiss, the attorney stated that I discovered that I had inadvertently omitted the exhibits to the city's brief. Those exhibits include the following, of which I am uploading with this correspondence. Exhibit A, plaintiff form A, a handwritten complaint. Exhibit B, plaintiff's affidavit dated 1/3/2020, January 3rd, 2020, with interrogatories pertaining to the complaint or affidavit. Exhibit C, plaintiff's affidavit dated February 5th, 2020, also had interrogatory questions. Exhibit D, documents containing articles and documents created by a defendant containing a list of all such articles. These are the laws supporting my particular claim, supported by affidavit. She said, I respectfully request that the court excuse this oversight and allow the city to supplement its filing. There is no harm to the plaintiffs but for the list created by the defendant. These are the same documents submitted by the plaintiff with his filing, and as such are already in his possession. Thank you for your consideration. Yours truly, Office of the City Attorney, Charlie Gaydon, Esquire, Assistant City Attorney. Enclosed, C.C. Clifford Jefferson, which is the plaintiff. Now, if anybody understands this, what they're actually saying is that they were supposed to, in responding to my complaint, send a copy of all attachments brought forth by the allegations of the complaining party, in lieu of their opposition to those allegations, in lieu of the exhibits supported by the plaintiff's arguments, in lieu of its claim. But what they're telling the court is that they inadvertently omitted it by way of oversight. Okay? So if the court didn't get these copies by way of their oversight, then that means that they must not send the plaintiff any copies either, because it was an oversight. Nobody should have got that. But let's see if this is the case. All right? Okay, this is my response. There you go. You see our flag of Jersey before it became incorporated as New Jersey. This is the tribes of the Anglo-Saxon Berber tribes. This flag was created in 1970. It shows you the house I'm a part of, under the authority of the Church of England, of the Royal House of Plantagenet, which is actually pronounced Jefferson, and Middle English is pronounced Godfrey, Count of Anjou. This is Jerusalem, if you read the history. Authority of the Crown of Plantagenet's Kingdom of England from 927 A.D. to the present. A.D. means Annus Dominus, in the year of our Lord. Under Atherton, he was the king, first king, or considered first king of England. New Jersey Provincial Council was the upper house of New Jersey legislature under the colonial rule until it was replaced by New Jersey Legislative Council under the New Jersey Constitution of 1776 under a state church. So the state church or the state religion was Christianity under the Church of England. The jurisdiction of the Court of Middlesex-shire was within the territory what we call Jersey, not the state what we call Jersey, because that was under the authority of the proprietors, which surrendered their authority back to the church in 1702. Okay? These are the complaining parties: Clifford Jefferson, Probate Court versus Probate Court, and the Health Department of Vital Statistics. This is my rebuttal to their supplemental filing in regards to failure or inadvertently omitting the exhibits from the documents as a mere oversight. Here's the proof that it was not a mere oversight. It says, Dear Madame, I am the plaintiff in the above probated matter. Probate means to prove. Pursuant to the Defendant's Department of Health Vital Statistics request for supplement filing. Defendant stated in their letter dated March 25, 2020, that upon reviewing the plaintiff's opposition, which is my motion papers, supported by a motion to strike motion of defendants dated March 20, 2020, that was filed with the court, their attorney discovered that he or she inadvertently omitted the exhibits to the city's brief to support their motion to dismiss the complaint. The exhibits include Part A, Part B, Part C, and D, as well as additional exhibits with interrogatory sent to both defendants on, give me 1 second. One was sent on February 5th, 2020. February 5th, 2020. Another one was sent on February 10th, 2020. Interrogatories supported by interrogatory questions, as well as defendants were asked additional questions that were sent to them on March 12, 2020. Defendants were asked additional 19 interrogatory concerning the birth record and the United States Census Bureau on page 1, 4, and 5, with exhibits that they received by way of certified mail on March 12, 2020. Okay? It says defendants have dishonored the integrity of this court with this advert, perjurious lie that it was a mistake, but this fact shows otherwise. Let's see how. You see that? There's Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D. This is sent by the Office of City Attorney, right here, with the docket number. All right. Defendants, right here. Defendants brief in support of motion to dismiss plaintiff's complaint with prejudice for failure to state a claim which relief can be granted. So my claim with supporting evidence to support my claim is what they omitted inadvertently from the so-called brief in which they submitted to the court. But now all of a sudden they're saying they did it by way of mistake. All right? Here's also the date they sent it. All right? Sorry. 1 second. Let's see here. It says, conclusion. For the foregoing reason, defendant hereby requests that the plaintiff's complaint be dismissed with prejudice as proposed ordinance submitted herewith by the Office City Attorney. Here's the date, March 12, 2020. Now here, here's the date I got it. What day was that? Let me go back to it. Let me go back to that letter. This is the day I got the letter. Sorry about that. Where's it at? Let me just find it, my brothers and sisters. This is very important. You know, we got to be able to argue important matters. Here we go. right there. His office represents the defendant of the New Brunswick Department of Health and Vital Statistics in the above matter. On March 12, 2020, the office filed a motion to dismiss, which I stated just a second ago. Dismissed the complaint with prejudice for failure to state the claim, which relief will be granted. That motion is scheduled to be heard for all arguments on April 9, 2020. And reviewing the plaintiff's opposition to the city's motion, they discovered that they inadvertently omitted, which means that they took it out or didn't put it in the city's brief. Now, I just proved otherwise that they did. They did admit to do that or advertently meant to do it. They advertently meant to do it. Why? Because they didn't want the court to know that I did state a claim which relief could be granted. All right? Pursuant to the subject matter in lieu of the actual complaint and allegations. Okay, let's go back here. Back to my grandfather. All right? Pursuant to me suing them for slavery in lieu of now counting the English natives as amongst the living. Because apparently we're not counted amongst the living. All right? Let's go ahead, right here for a minute, to show you. All right. Right here, this is when my legal arguments, grounds for, and these are the legal arguments. These are the statements of facts. Point 1, point 2, point 3. I went over this the other day with you guys. This is the legal arguments in regards to their motion to dismiss, which is not supported by any fact. The only thing they're using to support their motion to dismiss is a procedural rule and a New Jersey statute annotated tort act, which case law states otherwise that you need evidence to support a motion to dismiss. These are the grounds for my dismissal, based off what the census, 2010 census then states, which is done every 10 years. As you see here, 72% white alone, American citizen, all right? Black, 12.6%. That's with African included, all right? White American, a racial or ethnic group of Americans who identify as and are perceived to be white people, blase, blase. White Americans include white Hispanic, constitute a historical and current majority of the people living in the United States, with 72% population identifying as white in the 2010 United States Census. American ancestors refer to people brought to America as slaves in the United States who self-identify their ancestral origin or descent as American rather than the common, openly recognized racial ethnic groups that make up the bulk of American people. Let's deal with this, all right? Let's deal with the Americans as slaves who make up the bulk of American citizens, which you are. I'm about to prove it to you. All right, and I'm gonna show you why the Jefferson name is so important, pursuant to that freedom that you so-called, or dreamed, our brothers and sisters and our ancient forefathers so-called dreamed about. All right? Let's go ahead. Treaty of Paris. You guys see that? Treaty of Paris signed by representative of King George III, the Great, King George III of Great Britain and representative of the United States of America on September 3rd, 1784, ending the American Revolutionary War. This is when America got their independence. The treaty set up the boundary between the British Empire in North America and the United States of America on the lines exceedingly generous to the latter. Details include fishing rights, restoration of property, and prisoners of war. All right? This treaty and the separate peace treaty between Great Britain and the nations that supported the American cause, which included France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic, are known collectively as the Peace of Paris. Only Article 1 of the treaty, which acknowledges the United States existed as a free, sovereign, and independent state, remains in force. You hear that? Only Article 1 of this treaty, which acknowledges the United States exists in a free, sovereign, and independent states, remain in force. This is agreement to that remaining in force of this treaty and the obligation that they have in regards to the bona fide signatories and the so-called owners of this particular geographical location before this treaty was granted. This is the agreement. Now, this is supposed to be ratified January 14, 1784, but as you can see, they only had 5 delegates. It's supposed to have been 9 delegates to ratify this treaty, in which Thomas Jefferson said they lied. It's right here. Where's the statement is? Let me go here. All right, let me try it. Peace negotiations between Paris and April 1782 and continued through the summer, representing the United States were Benjamin Franklin, John J. Henry Lawrence, and John Adams, David Hartley, and Robert Oswald. The treaty was drafted on November 30, 1782 and signed at the Hotel de York at President 56 Rue Jacob and Paris on September 3, 1783 by Adams, Franklin, J. and Hartley. Okay? Let's go down to the key points of this Treaty of Paris. All right? All right, here we go. Key points. The treaty and the separate peace treaties between Great Britain and the nations that supported America's cause, France, Spain, and Dutch Republic, are known collectively as the Peace of Paris. Only Article 1 of this treaty, which acknowledges the United States exists as a free, sovereign independence, remains in force. The border of the United States changed in later years, which is a major reason for the specific articles of treaty to be superseded. Now, this is why they say only part of the treaty remain in force. Why? Because the other substantial parties is not there. Who are those parties? The English descendants. I proved it by way of the Census Bureau 2010 census. There's no English counted amongst the population, which means you're dead. The preamble declares that the treaty to be in the name of the most holy and the undivided Trinity, followed by the reference to the divine providence. See, they were called providence, not states, not municipalities, not counties, so on and so forth. States had the bona fides of the signatories and declared the intentions of both parties to forget all past misunderstandings and differences and secure the both perpetual peace and harmony. Okay? Britain acknowledges that the United States is composed of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Bay, Rhode Island, province plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. See, there are provinces plantations. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia to be free, what? To be free and sovereign and independent states. And that the British Crown and all heirs and successors relinquish claim to the government, property, and territorial rights of the same and events part thereof, based off these conditions. Which one, two, establish the boundaries of the United States, including but not limited to those between the United States and the British North America from Mississippi River to the South colonies. Britain surrenders their previously owned land. 3, granted fishing rights to United States fishermen in the Grand Banks of the coast of Newfoundland and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. 4, recognize the lawful contracted deed to be paid to creditors on either side. Okay, this is the most important aspect of this Treaty of Paris. Recognize that the lower contract debts to be paid to creditor on either side. 5, the Congress of Confederation will earnestly recommend to state legislators to recognize the rightful owners of all confiscated lands and provide for the restitution of all estates, rights, and properties which have been confiscated belonging to the British subjects, which were who? The Loyalists. Who were the Loyalists? The Loyalists were those natives who helped assist the British when America broke away from the British by way of their Declaration of Independence and their ratification of their independence by the Treaty of Paris in January 14, 1784. Okay? Point 6, the United States will prevent future confiscation of the property of the Loyalists. 7, prisoners of war on both sides are to be released. Our property of the British armies includes slaves now in the United States is to remain and be forfeited. Great Britain and the United States are to be given perpetual access to the Mississippi River. 9, territory captured by either side subsequent to the treaty will be returned without compensation. 10, ratification of the treaty is to occur within 6 months from its signing. All right, done in Paris this 3rd day of September in the year of our Lord, 1783. You see that? So this is the obligation that the so-called parties they have, known as signatories, which are supposed to be bona fide parties, with the so-called signatories, which then compose of the right amount, because if the United States Congress of the Confederation ratified the Treaty of Paris on January 14, 1784. Let's go here. I was born on January 14, 1784, by the way. All right? This is the Jefferson's Compromise. All right? Let's go here. It says, due to the severe winter of 1783 and 1784, only delegates from 7 of the 13 states were present in Congress. According to the Articles of Confederation, 9 states were required to enter into a treaty. One faction believed that 7 states could ratify the treaty, arguing that they were merely ratifying and not entering into a treaty. Furthermore, it was unlikely that the required delegates could reach Annapolis before the ratification deadline. Thomas Jefferson faction believed that a full 9 states were required to ratify the treaty. Any less would be trickery, which Britain would eventually find out, giving it an excuse to nullify the treaty. Jefferson states that it would be dishonorable prostitution of the Great Seal of the United States. So they broke their obligation as bona fide signatories between this treaty, because they didn't have a right amount of signatories. 2, they didn't restore the land to the rightful owners, known as the Black Lords, who assisted them all the way back from the English Civil War all the way up to the Revolutionary War of 1783. All right? So there is your history, brothers and sisters. Let's do a little bit more research on these natives who helped assist them in regards to their independence from the British Crown, which is under authority by way of order under Queen Anne, who was Queen of Great Britain and Queen of England. All right? Give me 1 second. I'm tired of playing with y'all. Everybody think I'm crazy. And the record supports what I'm saying. All right? Let's go ahead. Black Loyalists. All right? Black Loyalists. You see that? Do y'all see that? A Black Loyalist was a person of African descent who sided with the Loyalists during the American Revolutionary War. In particular, the terms refer to men who escaped the enslavement of patriots, masters, and served on the Loyalist side because of the Crown's promise of freedom. You see that? Some 3,000 Black Loyalists were evacuated from New York to Nova Scotia. This is talking about up in Canada. They were individually listed in the Book of Negroes as the British gave the certificates of freedom and arrangements for transport. All right? There you go. All right? So there were Black Loyalists who assisted in the British in regards to America's breaking their obligation to the British Crown, which I just proved to you by way of the not the right amount of signatories, by way of them being bona fide. They broke their obligation to us, the English people, to restore our land, our rights as indigenous people to this land. All right? Okay. Let's go through here. As I stated, my grandfather was born in 1914. All right? This was through the Progressive era. Jim Crowism, all this stuff was going on at that particular time. My grandfather was born in Columbus, Mississippi. Columbus, Mississippi was discovered by who? Hernando de Soto. This is where all the gold come from. All right? In 1933, the Federal Reserve System was instituted, and therefore we don't use that gold and silver anymore. My grandfather was not around at that particular time. Give me 1 second. Look at this. Y'all gotta read. I have to read in order to get yourself out of this predicament. Have to read. Watch how the Department of Justice is always showing up. Always showing up. All right? Always showing up. Why? Because this is the way you receive assistance from your so-called government that you elected in regards to protecting your civil or social estate, which now they call state, S-T-A-T-E, instead of estate, I-E, E-S-T-A-T-E. All right? The Great Migration is sometimes known as the Great Northern Migration or the Black Migration. Was the movement of 6 million Africans Americans out of the rural southern United States to the urban northeast, Midwest, and West that occurred between 1960 and 1970. Okay, I was born in 1970. My grandfather was born in 1914. All right, he died in 1974. So my grandfather was a part of this movement. All right, the descendancy it passes down from the father lineage, bloodline, not the mother. All right, says in in every U.S. census, right here. In every U.S. census prior to 1910, more than 90% of African American populations live in the American South. In 1900, only one-fifth of the African Americans living in the South were living in urban areas. All right, there you go. You got the percentage there. Let's go a little further. Let's dig. All right. Since the Civil Rights Movement, a less rapid reverse migration has occurred. Dubbed the New Great Migration, it has seen gradual increase of African American migration to the South, generally to states and cities where economic opportunities are the best. The reason included economic difficulties of cities in the Northeast and Midwestern United States, growth of jobs in the New South, and its lower cost of living, family and kinship ties, and improved racial relations. All right? When you get this article, read about it. Go a little deeper in it. I already done that, so I don't need to go here anymore. But it's speaking about us, how we had to do the Great Migration. We left our home, okay? We left our homeland. All right, it gives you all the information. All right, this was due when Woodrow Wilson was elected in the office. He was also the first governor, one of the governors of New Jersey. Did you know that? Okay, let's look up Woodrow Wilson. I'm just skipping and moving too. All right, let's look at this snake. He's a snake. All your so-called founding fathers were snakes. All right? All right, here we go. Thomas Woodrow Wilson, American politician, lawyer, and academic who served as the 28th president of the United States from 1913 to 1921. All right, a member of the Democratic Party, Wilson served as the president of the Princeton University and as the 31st governor of New Jersey. You see that? The 34th governor of New Jersey. All right, let's go along a little bit further. All right, let's get this dig. All right, let's go ahead. During his first term, Wilson presided over passage of the progressive New Freedom domestic agenda. His first majority priority was the passage of the Revenue Act of 1913, which lowered tariffs and implemented a federal income tax. The Act implemented a federal estate tax and raised top income tax ratio to 77%. Wilson also presided over the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, which created a central banking system in the form of the Federal Reserve System. Did you hear that? This is where your funny money come from. All right? My grandfather was around at that particular time. You see that? Okay. All right? This is where the Treaty of Versailles is coming. The resulting League of Nations was incorporated into the Treaty of what? Treaty of Versailles. This is 1784. All right? You had a couple of them. There's one in 1784. Let's see if it's there. Let's go back to Treaty of Paris before I go on. Treaty of Paris. See, I know how to skip and jump. Treaty of Paris. Give me another. It's also called something else. Oh, for the sake of time, let's move on. Let's go to Mississippi. My grandfather was from Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi. Columbus, Mississippi was so-called discovered by Hernando de Soto. Okay? M-I, quick letter. M-I, quick letter. I, quick letter. I, humpback. I. All right? Here we go. Mississippi. This is where Christ Church comes from. Christ comes back from his church. His church is in Mississippi. Jefferson County, Mississippi, I might add. All right? Mississippi. All right? Where is it at? Give me 1 second. I missed it. Okay, here we go. That's right. Until the Great Migration of the 1930s, African Americans were the majority of Mississippi population. Did you hear that? The majority of the Mississippi population. This is the Mississippi culture. All right? That goes way past the history of the so-called founding fathers, who were forced under the Great Migration. All right? Under the Great Migration Act of 1930. All right? In 1924, they had the Indian Citizenship Act under what they call cultural assimilation of the so-called natives. All right? By way of force. By way of force. I taught on this already. All right? The Great Migration of 1930s, African Americans was the majority of Mississippi population. The majority. Mississippi was the site of many prominent events during the American Civil Rights Movement. This is called the Progressive Era, my brothers and sisters, including the 1962 Ole Miss riots. In 1963, assassination of Medgar Evers, and 1964 Freedom Summer murders. Mississippi frequently ranked low among states in measures of health, education, and development, and high measures of poverty. It says in 2010, here go that 2010 census, 37% of Mississippi population was African American, the highest percentage for any state. You hear that? The population of any state. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. Let's go here. Let's go into the county of Jefferson, Mississippi. My last name. My grandfather's last name. From the house of Plantagen. All right? I know my lineage. What about you? All right? Jefferson, Godfrey, Plantagen, Count of Anjou. That's go back to Jerusalem. That's Christ's church. You see it right there? Historic Christ Church. All right? Right there. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson links himself on to Henry II by Ida of Tosney. All right? This is getting into the so-called French. They claim to be descendants of Henry II, the son of Godfrey, the Count of Anjou, from the house of Plantagen. This is not the case. It's not the case. Robert I de Tony is the illegitimate child of Henry II. Robert I de Tony, son of Ida de Tony. Look it up. It's not a rightful heir under the for Thomas Jefferson receives his last name from. It's not. It belongs to the descendants of John I, who was the son of Henry II, who was the son of Godfrey, the Count of Anjou, from the house of Plantagen. All right, let's go a little deeper. All right, this is where Christ Church comes from. This is where so-called Jesus Christ is coming back for his people. All right, from his land, speaking his language, his custom, his traditions, and they were not Indians. I'm about to prove that. Jefferson is a county located in the United States of Mississippi, its western border, and is formed by the Mississippi River as of the 2010 census. You hear that? They keep talking about 2010 census. The county is named for the United States President Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president. All right? Third president. Originally developed as a cotton plantation, all right? a cotton plantation in the antebellum era. The rural county has struggled with the declining economy and reduced population since the mechanization of agriculture and urbanization of other areas. In 2018, an estimated population of 7,106 was roughly one-third of the population peak in 1900. Within the United States in the year 2009, rural Jefferson County had the highest percentage of the African Americans of any county. It was the fourth poorest county of the nation. I'm going to repeat that again. Let's go back here. Where's it at? It goes back deeper in it. Right here. You see that? Jefferson County has the highest percentage of black residents of any United States county. Of any United States county. They slaughtered us, the Mississippi culture. Slaughtered us. Let's see how they did this. How did they slaughter us? Slaughter us. Okay? All right. Jefferson. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's dig a little deeper, y'all. Jeffersonville, Indiana. No, I don't want to go there. They took over our name, family. This is our name. Jeff. Nickname Jeff. That's what they call it. Skyline Jeffersonville. Villages of the natives. Villages of the natives. All right? Let's break this down. All right? We're going to see how Jefferson got to name this territory. Jeffersonville is a city in Clark County, Indiana. You see that? United States, situated along the Ohio River. This is when you get into the French and Indian War against the British. Thomas Jefferson, Edward Braddock, John Adams, William Henry Harrison. Y'all don't know nothing about that. You're going to read about William Henry Harrison when Thomas Jefferson tells him to make treaties. He's the first governor of what? Jeffersonville. All right? Abbreviated the name Jeff. Lies directly across the Ohio River and north of Louisville. All right? You get into the Kingdom of France. Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XII, Louis XIII, so on and so forth. Jefferson begins its existence as a settlement around Fort Finney sometime after 1786. It was named after Thomas Jefferson in 1801, the year he took office. Okay, you see that? Okay, Finney was situated where the Kennedy Bridge is today to protect the area from natives Americans, and a settlement grew around the fort. The fort was named in 1791 to Fort Steuben in honor of Baron von Steuben. Now, he's a general chief of staff for George Washington. Check it out. You don't believe me? Check it out. It's a German. From Prugen, part south. Frederick Wilhelm August Heinrich Ferdinand Steuben, also referred to as Baron von Steuben, was a Prussian and later an American military officer. He served as Inspector General and Major General of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. You see that? He is one of the fathers of the Continental Army and teaching the essentials of military drills, tactics, and discipline. Did you see that? He wrote the regulations for the Order of Discipline of the Troops of the United States, the book that served as the Army's drills manual for decades. He served as a general for George Washington's chief of staff in the final years of the war. You hear that? So this Jeffersonville was abandoned by Steuben, which was chief of staff for George Washington. Now here comes Thomas Jefferson taking over Jeffersonville. Why is it called Jeffersonville? Because Ville is a village made of tribes of people, all right, who were of the Jefferson descendants, i.e. Jeff, or what we call Godfrey, all right? These were the Mississippi cultures that was all the way up from Ohio all the way down to Louisiana, which were actually Anglo-Saxons, because they was under the authority as considered black loyalists protecting the British crown when it was passed from Queen Anne to George I, from the House of Handel. You hear that? Okay, let's go a little further. So we're going to get in the history of 1813, 1840. Jefferson was briefly the de facto capital of Indiana Territory. Before it was a state, it was called Indiana Territory. All right? Let's go here. Let's go to William Henry Harrison. Where is this at? Let's go ahead. Let me find it. I do my research, brothers and sisters. Okay, give me 1 second. Thomas Jefferson, Kenny Bridge. All right, we got Clark County. There we go. Let's check out Clark County. Because these are one of the counties in Indiana, Clark County. This is when William Henry Harrison is the governor of Clark County. You also got Knox County, Randolph County, St. Clair County, and Jeffersonville is the city, and one in what we call Clark County. All right. Let's get and support this theory, or not theory, but a fact. My hand falling asleep. Forgive me. Clark County. All right, let's just type in his name. Let's just type in the brother's name. That would just be better. All right. Let's type in the brother's name. Jeffersonville, Clark County. All right. We're going to come up with William Henry Harrison. There we go. I do my research, my brothers and sisters. I do my research. I'm official when it comes to this. Excuse me. William Henry Harrison. February 9, 1773 to April 4, 1841 was an American military officer and politician who served as the 9th president of the United States. You see that? 9th president. All right, let's dig a little deeper. Right here, it says he was the last president born as a British subject in the 13 colonies before the start of the Revolutionary War in 1775. 1775, it was under the Provincial Council of the Provincial Congress. All right, so it tells you here that Harrison was the 6th president of one of the founding fathers. You see that? All right, we're going to connect him and Thomas Jefferson. Called the Treaty of Venice. In 1 second, let me find it. Here we go. You see that? Remember, Frederick Stuyvesant was the chief of staff for George Washington, the first president of the United States, who was also a proprietary. All right? Who all declared their independence from the British Crown in 1783. Ratified January 14, 1784, based off the Treaty of Paris. All right? But they started plotting way before this, the so-called subjects of the British Crown, which is why they're in trouble to this very day as so-called violations of the signatories of being bona fide. They're not. This is Indian Territory Governor. Harrison began his duties on January 10, 1801, at Vincennes, the capital of Indiana's territory. Now, look where our family crest. Let's go up see our family crest. Look at the flag. You see that family crest, y'all? You see that? That's how deep we go back. Why do you think Louisiana has the fleur de lis on it? Because you get into the history of the French. All right? The French. The French kingdom of France goes back to Philip II, who goes back to the House of Plantagenet, which Jefferson or Godfrey was the king over. King over. All right? Indian Territory governor. Harrison began his duties on January 10, 1801 at Vincennes, the capital of Indiana's territory. President Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were both members of the Democratic Republican Party, and they appointed him as a governor in 1803 and 1806 and 1809. He resigned on December 28, 1812, and to resume his military career during the War of 1812. Okay? Now, William Henry Harrison was appointed by John Adams. Appointed by John Adams. Let's find it. Let's find it. Let me find it. I got so much in my head, brothers and sisters, that I got to be jumping around. You know, I don't want y'all to fall asleep on me. You know, some of y'all will. But that's okay. That is okay. Because it's not for you. It's not for you. Where is it at? Let me go back up here. Oh, I'm supposed to go back there. William Henry Harrison, Treaty of Vincennes. Let me find it. Where is this treaty at? I gotta almost stop this video. It's gonna get too long. I don't want it to get too long. Where is it at? Thomas Jefferson. Oh, let me go back here. Treaty, I just had it. Where did it go? Treaty of Vincennes. Give me 1 second, brothers and sisters. I'm trying to teach. I know it's here, I just seen it. Here it is. President John Adams named him governor of the newly established Indiana Territory. You see that? He was elected by John Adams, the second president. Did you hear that? All right. Let me just scroll back down here and find out what I'm looking for. Treaty of Vincennes. Okay, here we go. French and Indian War. All right. Thomas Jefferson gave William Henry Harrison authority to create these treaties. If you read on, it's here somewhere. There you go, Henry Knox. That's another county in Indiana. That's where Henry Knox, Fort Knox, all that stuff is related. All right, all that stuff is related. You see the floor of the leaves. You know, we getting back to Columbus, Ohio, established by Hernando de Soto. You're getting to gold, okay? You're getting to the gold. So all this just goes into the history of our people, you know, as the Mississippi culture. You know, I don't know what else, you know, I got to say to you, brothers and sisters, that, you know, this is who we are. This is who we are. Let me find something else. Key. All right, let me come back here. Where's it at? Right here. Do you see that? This is from Social Security Administration. Notification of birth registration. Many birth registers sending notifications to the birth registration with when their birth has been recorded. The purpose of this form is to notify the parents of information contained on the birth record so that any necessary changes can be made in the record. Now, Woodrow Wilson was president in this particular time, right? Also, he was governor when my grandfather was born in 1914. So my grandfather was subject to this notification of birth registration, which apparently his mother and father must have never got. All right? So therefore, they was never counted amongst the Bureau of Live Statistics in lieu of the population. And I know they wasn't counted because according to the census of 2010, there is no English people on there. And the people composed of English were those tribes that they now classify as Indian. Okay, yeah, that's where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to go. What was it called? It's called, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, brothers and sisters. Gotta find my iPad. What do I do with it? Okay. Let's see if it comes up. Wikipedia, and probably don't. Yes, okay, here we go. Indian Reservation is a legal designation for area of land management by federally recognized Indian tribe. Did you hear that? Let me just fix that for you. Okay, here we go. All right. U.S. Recognized Indian tribes under the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs rather than the state government of the United States in which they are physically located, okay? So they're physically located in the states governments of the United States and not by some so-called United States Bureau of Indian Affairs, okay? Let's go a little further. Here we go. Colonial and early United States history. From the beginning of European colonization of America, Europeans also removed native people from the lands they wished to occupy. This means varied, including treaties made under considerable duress, forcible ejection, violence, and in a few cases, voluntary movement based on mutual agreement. This movement is called social contract, my brothers and sisters, that birth certificate. The removal caused many problems such as tribes losing means of livelihood by being subject to defined areas, farmers having inadmissible land for agriculture, and hostility between tribes. Now, when you get into the Calvin's case, we're going to read that before I end my lesson. You will see that Indians didn't receive the rights as Englishmen under the subjects of the king or the church. It says the first reservation was established in southern New Jersey on August of 29, 1758. It was called Brockton Indian Reservation, and also Edgepillac. The area was 3,284 acres. Today it's called Indian Mills in Shunstrom Township. Did you see that? All right, so it was first so-called reservation of European was established here in southern New Jersey. In southern New Jersey, what else proof do you need? Wow. And I just looked that up. All right? I just looked that up. All right, so I want to say that too. So let me just find the title of this again, and we're moving on to Calvin's case. (1608). This is the only proof you need. This is in reference to uh, authority under King James. Calvin case, 1608, 770 ER 377, also known as the case of the Apostlonat, was a 1608 English legal decision establishing that a child born in Scotland after the union of the crown under James VI and the first in 1603 was considered under the common laws to be the English subject and entitled to the benefit of English law. Now, who was King James of Scotland? Scotland and England rebelled in the English Civil War against the laws of England.